Welcome friends to Literature Mantra. I'm Harsh Singh and today's topic of discussion is how to handle reading comprehension in MA English entrance exam of Delhi University. In this video we will discuss broadly what are the ways of solving reading comprehension, and when you practice questions, what are the types of questions that you should practice for reading comprehension, the role of vocabulary, whether vocabulary is important or not, or how important vocabulary is, and then figures of speech, whether revising figures of speech will be important or not to solve reading comprehension. So let's begin.
And do connect with Literature Mantra, India's only free online preparation platform for UGC-NET and all English literature based exams.
So broadly, there are two ways of solving reading comprehension. First is read the extract first or the unseen passage first, and then the second is reading the questions first. So some teachers say that no, you should read the extract first. Other teachers say that read the questions first. But which is the best method? See, both methods tend to work. So if you have an extract which has more than 2 or 3 questions, then you should read the extract first because that will save time. On the other hand, you should read the questions first if questions are 1 or 2 per extract or passage. So if there is one extract which only has 1 question or 2 questions, read the questions first, because that way you can easily see. Sometimes what happens is the examiner gives a very long extract and deliberately he or she gives just 1 question or 2 question so that your time gets consumed. So here is a method that you should use when the extract is very long and the questions for that extract are only 1 or 2. So there is no perfect method of solving reading comprehension. It depends upon the type of comprehension that you have. If you have a long comprehension and 1 or 2 questions, read the question first. Begin by reading the question first. If you have an extract which has many questions, then don't waste your time in reading the questions first. Suppose if there are 5 questions or even more questions for one extract, then start with the extract and finish reading the extract as quickly as possible so that you can move on to the questions. So दोस्तों, आप ये पूछ सकते हो कि rationale क्या है ये different methods का, क्यों different methods use करें? Well, basically to save time and to increase the accuracy of your answers. See, since we are in a exam like situation, or since you have to appear for an exam and the time is limited, so you have to save time as much as you can in one question so that you can use the remaining in the next questions or in the remaining questions. And also in trying to increase the accuracy of your answers. See, you don't have time to read any extract or passage 5 times or 3 times or 4 times or 5 times. That will consume time. So what is the point of reading it multiple times? So your aim should be read it as few number of times as possible, but at the same time mark accurate answers. Your answers should be correct. So this is basically the rationale behind, choosing different methods for different extracts or different unseen passages. And see, reading comprehension is not something which you can learn in 2 days or 5 days or 10 days. Maybe it will take you months of practice. Does anybody have that much of time? No. So first of all, we must decide as to what kind of extracts we are going to practice. But first, let's see what are the type of extracts that anybody can get. Well, the answer is there can be endless number of topics, themes and subjects. But for a specific exam, generally certain themes, topics, issues are chosen by examiners. But for example, in some exams like CUET, which is for MBA, any topic can be asked. They can ask from management, philosophy, literature, science, astronomy, environment. But in exams like MA English entrance of Delhi University, generally the issues will be related to literature. See, I have analyzed the past 5 to 10 years' questions, and based on that I'm making this assessment. So I'm also saying this with a disclaimer that this assessment is based on analysis of previous year's question paper. So it might happen that DU can change the trend this time, but my opinion would be that you should stick to reading comprehension, passages in reading comprehension that are based on literature or closely related to literature while you practice. Okay, so don't waste your time reading extracts from the field of management, philosophy, science, astronomy, because mostly what Delhi University asks is something related to literature. So limit your practice to that. Focus your energy in the right direction because time is limited, right? And then the next question that students tend to ask is even from literature, what can be asked from literature? See, they can give you a extract from any feminist writing or a critic's review of a novel, and they will ask you questions on that. That is also literature, but yes, that is more closely related to literature. That is not related to the field of management or philosophy or science or astronomy. Now let's move on to the kind of extracts or the usual extracts in literature based exams. For example, the MA English entrance exam of Delhi University. So what can you expect? Well, one of the favorites of examiners is just giving a poem. Directly they will give you a poem and they will ask questions from that. Another kind of extract that they usually give is concept based. For example, they can give you an extract on historicism, new criticism, effective fallacy, reader response theory, etc. So these are also related to literature. So you can get direct questions from these. Then they can also give you extracts from literary works. For example, they can give you an extract from Virginia Woolf's novel Mrs. Dalloway. They can also ask a question, identify the narrative voice. Is it the voice of the novelist or any character's voice? The difficulty in such questions in such passages is that since Virginia Woolf's novel Mrs. Dalloway, as you all know, uses the stream of consciousness technique, so it becomes difficult in one reading to identify whose voice is this. Is it the novelist's voice or any character's voice? So these are the usual kind of extracts which you might get in entrance exam of Delhi University. So limit your practice and preparation to these things. Then comes the role of vocabulary. Well, this is very obvious, but I thought that I will emphasize this because generally what happens is students know this, but they still neglect this. So this is one of the ironies, that students know that vocabulary is important, but they still don't revise. See, my point is that you shouldn't focus on building new vocabulary or new words, because it is not possible to learn new words in 7 days or 10 days. My suggestion would be, जहाँ भी आप note करते हैं words को, for example in a notebook or on loose sheets, जहाँ भी आपने note किया है, just revise that. Okay, revision is very important of vocabulary. It might sound very simplistic, but it is very important. Then comes figures of speech. See, figures of speech are always important in literature-based exams. For example, the famous ones: alliteration, simile, assonance, enjambment, onomatopoeia, litotes, apostrophes, then simile, metaphor, personification, all of that. And the reason why I'm emphasizing this is that you will get direct questions from figures of speech. They will give you a extract or a unseen passage or a poem, and they will say, please identify which of these describes the alliteration in line blah blah blah. They can also give you a line from a poem, and they will ask, this is a example of what? Enjambment, assonance, litotes, blah 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 blah. So unless you know these commonly used figures of speech, it will become very difficult to solve those easy questions. So please don't neglect figures of speech. I know most of you know all of this, but please revise this. Don't neglect this. So to sum up, what I said was, work on your reading technique. For example, reading the extract first or the questions first based on the length of the extract and the number of questions. Then revise your vocabulary. Wherever you note down your words, please revise that. That will be of great help. Then don't neglect figures of speech. And one more thing, I will make a video on figures of speech in 1 or 2 days' time. Okay, tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, I will try to make a video on figures of speech. I will try to cover the important ones. I can't cover all of them, but I will try to cover as many as possible and the important ones first. Then comes literary theory and criticism. Though I haven't specifically mentioned this, but why I'm mentioning this now is when I was discussing the usual extracts in literature based exams, I remember I told you concept based. you might get extracts which are concept based. For example, they will give you a extract on historicism, new criticism, effective fallacy. So all of this falls under the rubric of literary theory and criticism. So please revise literary theory and criticism as much as possible. And I will also make a video in 1 or 2 days' time. I will try to cover as many important areas as possible, because see, literary theory and criticism is not something that can be covered in 5 minutes or 10 minutes or even half an hour. But what I'll do is I'll try to make a video on the important points and cover as much as possible and focus on those areas which can be asked by the university in the entrance exam. Okay, so I'll try to do it within 1 or 2 days' time. And before concluding this video, जितने भी मेरे students हैं उनको मैं ये कहना चाहता हूँ कि इस वीडियो के अलावा मैंने 2 और वीडियो बनाए हुए हैं. एक है ट्रेंड एनालिसिस पे जो MA इंग्लिश एंट्रेंस दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी के बारे में है. आपने अगर अभी तक वो नहीं देखा तो आप वो भी देख सकते हैं. और दूसरा वीडियो है मोस्ट एक्सपेक्टेड MCQs फॉर MA इंग्लिश एंट्रेंस एग्जाम दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी का प्रैक्टिस टेस्ट 1. सो अगर आपने ऑलरेडी नहीं देखा तो आप देख सकते हैं. इससे आपको एक अच्छा आइडिया मिल जाएगा दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी के एंट्रेंस एग्ज़ाम का, जो इंग्लिश एंट्रेंस एग्ज़ाम का. सो जो भी बचा हुआ टाइम है उसमें आप अपने एनर्जी को सही डायरेक्शन में चैनलाइज कर पाएंगे. इंस्टेड ऑफ फोकसिंग ऑन एवरी एरिया, बेटर टू फाइंड आउट द ट्रेंड ऑफ this entrance exam and practice those questions which are more likely to come. So with this, I conclude this video. I'm Harsh Singh and I'll see you in the next video.